And welcome everyone to round number 6 here, our final round of Swiss for our video game league challenge here at Cyclotron Place in Pico Rivera, California. I am Jesus Coronel once again, and we're going to go straight into round number 6 here. Our final round of Swiss, as I said, is will be Brandon Davis and Everett Filloon here for our final round of Swiss. This will likely decide some top cut seeding, and more importantly, a CPR, a top 16, is on the line between these two players. Brandon going to go ahead and have the female Indeedee, the Torgal, the regular Ursulina, the Sicilian one, Ogrepon Wellspring, Ursula Single Strike, and the Lunala. While for Everett, we see a Zamazenta, a Chenpao, a Rillaboom, a Ogrepon Heartflame, a Rimsicott, and a Regidrago. So Everett's team's, once again, like a fair balance of aggressive options with the Chenpao, Ogrepon, and the Regidrago, while Brandon Davis carrying his signature Trick Room strategy, because Brandon pretty known for running those type of Trick Room teams, and when you see Brandon running Trick Room, you know he means business. And here we go, round number 6 here between our two lovely trainers here. Everett gonna go ahead and send out that Ogrepon and Chenpao lead, so aggressive options right out of the gate. And Brandon gonna lead the Lunala and the Indeedee. So a couple things here. So Chenpao is actually going to be providing a lot of pressure with that throat chop. Now that we've seen that bit of iteration between these two between the Chenpao as of late, because usually you would see them run Sacred Sword, but now you're seeing them run throat chop more often than not to counteract those parting shots that Incineroar loves to do. But now that you're running throat chop, you're running these psychic types with immense damage, and it leaves a little bit of a question of what the Indeedee does here, because Indeedee can just go ahead and go for that follow me to redirect the attack away from Lunala, and that allows it to go for that Trick Room that Brandon desperately wants. And when Trick Room goes up for Brandon, usually the game's over, because Brandon's in a great spot where he could just get the Trick Room up and just don't sweat it. And here we do see the Indeedee go for the Terra Fairy, and it probably will signal a follow me to get it out of the way. Yet we do see that follow me come into play here. Chenpao did switch. Ogrepon to switch up for that Zamazenta to make sure that it stays safe. We do see the throat shot now not be very effective against that Chenpao, but it also gets hurt by a Rocky helmet, and in comes Trick Room for Brandon with the Lunala. Now that Trick Room's set up for Brandon, you can just go ahead and fire off those powerful attacks like that Meteor Beam as an example. And if it's Meteor Beam, then you're going to get a whole lot of damage out, and that increases the power level of that Moongeist Beam, as well as the power level of that Expanding Force that it carries, especially in the second terrain, which, I'll be honest with you, Zamazenta will not appreciate. Chenpao in threat of a knockout from this Meteor Beam because Focus Sash has been broken. And then you have Follow Me as well to redirect the attacks away from the Lunala to make sure you keep it safe from, especially that Chenpao, but also because of Heavy Slam on the Zamazenta that could be threatening on towards the Lunala. Ooh, interestingly enough, we're going to see the Torkoal switch in here for that Indeedee. And that's going to bring in some sunlight to give Torkoal more advantage that wants, and we are going to see that Chenpao go over to protect, make sure it stays safe for this very turn. Meteor Beam is going to get launched from this Lunala. Did it hit? Did it miss? Did it hit to protect? You are going to see that Power Curve activate as well as get that special attack boost. What other three options happened? It hit to protect the Chenpao, wanted to get out of the way. What does the Zamazenta do here? It heavy slams the Lunala, so we'll get rid of that Shadow Shield, doing a decent amount of damage too. And now Lunala's in a great spot to go for that Moongeist Beam on towards the Zamazenta, but it also could just go for the Moongeist being just to be safe. Expanding Force unfortunately is not an option because the Chien-Pao is unfortunately a dark type, meaning you can't really hit that thing well. So it's just going to have this Torkoal and how much damage it gets off with that Weather Ball is going to lock into with that Choice Specs. Ever going to withdraw the Zamazenta? Will this be for the Rillaboom? Yes, it will be for the Rillaboom. Oh, yeah, okay, that's actually a good play there from Everett to get rid of the Psychic Terrain, change it to Grassy Terrain, and Sucker Punch to Lunala from that Quad Weakness to a knockout. Here comes Weather Ball now from this Torkoal after the Sunlight being dropped in here into play, and that's enough for a knockout on the Chien-Pao. So yeah, you gotta bring back the DD here to make sure the Torkoal does not get threatened by a Fake Out from this Rillaboom, but for Everett, this feels a little weird because you have a Zamazenta that's weak to fire, you have a Rillaboom that's weak to fire, you have a potential Whimsicott that's weak to fire. No, you have Ogerpon. So it's just 3 Pokemon that are currently weak to fire, but 2 of those Terras can get you out of that weakness. And it's from the Rillaboom and it's from the Zamazenta. It just depends on which one Everett's willing to go for. Here comes Indeedee once again to reset that Psychic Terrain. And Zamazenta's going to come out from Everett. And because the Choice Specs the only allows to use the Weather Ball, he has to... Brandon has to choose a target wisely because one of these 2 targets can just go ahead and tear away from that fire weakness. Zamazenta, for example, can tear away into the Dragon type that it possesses, and Rillaboom has the Fire Terror to go into to make sure it doesn't get hit by a super effective Weather Ball. Indeedee, it's the only attacks that really benefit is Dazzling Gleam because if you go Terra Dragon onto the Zamazenta, it's still going to be super effective because of the Fairy typing. But it's still a risk that you have to be playing because, well, if you get the target wrong, well, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage here. We do see that Everett Terras is Rillaboom to fire. And the Weather Ball does go into the Rillaboom. It's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage anymore now that it's resisted. Here comes the Dazzling Gleam from the Terra boosted Indeedee. It's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage to the Rillaboom. Neither to the Zamazenta either. Rillaboom goes for U-turn. It's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage to the Torkoal, but it will pivot out back into the Ogerpon. And now what does the Zamazenta do here? Does it click Body Press onto the Torkoal, or does it click Heavy Slam onto the Indeedee? It's going to be Heavy Slam into the Indeedee, and it is enough to knock it out, so Psychic Terrain is now out of the equation. And that just gives Everett terrain control that he really wants, because when you have terrain control, you kind of have a free reign to go for those priority moves and make sure moves like that that Expanding Force that Luna would have been able to use is now out of commission. Brandon now brings in that Urshifu Single Strike as his last remaining Pokemon. It could threaten damage towards the Ogerpon as well as the Zamazenta, but there is a big problem in that, and that Trick Room is still up because this Urshifu is actually a Choice Scarf, so it's not going to be looking good to go for any of his attacks if it were to survive the turn, which it looks unlikely to be happening. And then either one of these Pokemon from Everett can just switch out into the Rillaboom that's waiting to just soak up the Weather Ball hit from this Torkoal. Everett just did a really good job of controlling the situation from getting the Trick Room, situation handled by getting the Grassy Terrain into play and to make sure you get the Sucker Punch knockout onto the Lunala. And now we're going to see the Zamazenta switch into the Rillaboom to soak up a Weather Ball there. Spiky Shield comes out. It's good against the Torkoal, but it won't be good against the Urshifu should it go for that attack. Weather Ball goes into the Ogerpon slot, so no damage taken there. What does the Rillaboom go for here? The Rillaboom clicks Close Combat and it hits into the Rillaboom, and it's not enough for a knockout. Bit of HP recovery coming in from this Grassy Terrain. I would still think a Trick Room's gone, so okay, never mind. There is Fake Out coming out from the Rillaboom as a pressure, meaning Ogerpon kinda has to focus the Urshifu close combat's not going to knock out the Ogerpon here, but it will knock out the Rillaboom. So it's just like, who do you fake out if you're Everett? If you fake out the Torkoal, you risk losing your Rillaboom to the Urshifu, and that's exactly what you got to go for the Urshifu with that fake out. Is it IV Culture coming into the Urshifu as well? Yes, it will. It will knock it out because of that -1 defense. It is hooked from the close combat and the Sun Boost that the Torkoal's Drought unfortunately ended up setting up. Weather Ball does land under the Ogerpon, as this likely is going to have to be scouting on how much damage it does. Almost a one-hit knockout onto the Ogerpon. And that, unfortunately, is going to wrap it up here for Everett, as he's going to be able to at least get into this game number 1 with a win. Another IV Guzzer comes out from this Ogerpon, doesn't even do half damage. Do that Torkoal out of the Sun's out of the way. Here goes Woodhammer with the Grassy Terrain boost. Doesn't even do half of it either. Doesn't take a whole lot of recoil damage as it didn't do a whole lot of damage. Here's some regular Weather Ball. This will be able to knock out the Ogerpon, but there's a Zamazenta waiting in the back, and it doesn't mind taking those Weather Balls. Zamazenta comes back in here, and although you're able to at least take the body press, but we'll take it pretty well. It takes it decently now that the defense boost is gone. Another Whip Hammer lands onto this Torkoal. It is enough to knock out Everett. Wins game number 1. As soon as we get out of that game 1 situation, again, the game came down to whether or not Lunala was able to attack here, and Everett was just smart enough to not let the Lunala get an attack off, because as long as that Psychic Terrain was up, you were not able to get the damage off from that Sucker Punch, which was Chien-Pao's best option to deal with that Lunala now that the Shadow Shield was just gone. And so the game plan for Brandon's going to be a little bit different, because you got to get pressure from that Psychic Terrain as well as the Trick Room, because we didn't really see Trick Room come into play because that Torkoal was just not meant to be there in that situation. And with Lunala going down on that turn, because Everett was able to time his Sucker Punch perfectly, he was able to at least get the damage rolling as well, as long as that Trick Room was just there. And oh, we see a little bit of a switch up here from Everett here. We see the Zamazenta and the Whimsicott lead. Brandon gonna switch it up as well. He leads Urshifu and Indeedee. Trick Room is an available option here for this Rillaboom, from this Indeedee. But the problem is just, well, you should be able to outspeed the Whimsicott, but you're going to get 1-hit KO'd by the Whimsicott. And you know, I think close combat's not enough to knock out the Zamazenta that +1 defense. And so it's like, what's the safer option as your Urshifu? Because close combat's not going to knock it out from that range. U-turn might have to be your option here. Yeah, it's got to be the U-turn into the Whimsicott. It's going to do decent damage. Going to retreat the Urshifu back from Brandon. And that probably allows the Lunala to get in here relatively free. No, we're seeing Torkoal come in. We're going to see Torkoal come in. So we got to see that it just indeed can survive the turn between this Zamazenta and the Whimsicott here. Here comes Heavy Slam into a fire type Torkoal, which is not very effective and not doing enough damage. Moonblast the Torkoal, not doing a whole lot of damage. No special attack drop, importantly. Trick Room goes up. Eruption looks to be really good right now. And now it's just Brandon's turn to go on the gas because you were already pressuring both the Whimsicott and the Zamazenta with this Torkoal and the potential of Eruption or Heat Wave and Weather Ball. 3 different fire attacks that could threaten a lot of Everett's team. And then for this Indeedee, well, Indeedee is switch out. I was going to point out that if it catches the Hera Dragon on the Zamazenta, it's going to do a decent amount of damage if it were to Terrestrialize away from that weakness to fire. Instead, we're going to see the Lunala switch in for that slot. Terrestrialization going to be utilized here. It's going to be the Whimsicott, and it's going to Terrestrialize into that fire type. And now Zamazenta protects here to scout out for what the Torkoal does in this turn. This Whimsicott kind of needs to go for the light screen here. Yeah, it does go for the light screen here. Some Whimsicotts are beginning to tech that move for all the special attackers that are implementing into this metagame. It does call the Terra correctly with the Weather Ball. Still doesn't take it very well thanks to the double power it got with the weather being set to sun. And now this Lunala kind of has a free turn to go for the Meteor Beam. And that just also allows the Zamazenta to be threatened by the Weather Ball. So I think it's a relatively free turn for Brandon to go from Weather Ball onto the Zamazenta and then Meteor Beam onto the Whimsicott. And then for Everett, you gotta at least get the Zamazenta out of the way. Potentially for that Regidrago in the back, because that's your best resistance against fire types now that your Terra's gone. Okay, it's actually Whimsicott, the Pokemon that switches out in that scenario, so whatever comes in is going to deal with the Meteor coming in its direction more than likely. It's going to be Rillaboom coming in here to get rid of the Psychic terrain for that grassy terrain, and so Expanding Force no longer to be the best option here. Okay, Zamazenta also switches out, and we're going to bring in the Chien-Pao for Everett. And the Terra comes out from Brandon. Will this be a power boost to this Torkoal with the Fire Terra, or will this be a Grass Terra from this Rillaboom? I mean, from this Lunala, excuse me. And here comes a Fire Terra from this Torkoal. It will be a power boost, indeed. Here comes a Weather Ball into the Sunlight Terra boosted, and it's going to hit into the Chien-Pao. It will proc its Focus Sash because of how much damage it's going to be taking from that Ice type. And the Moonlight Beam doubles into that Chien-Pao, so Chien-Pao's going to be taking a whole lot of damage. And down it goes with that double up into that slot, and it's going to be going down quick. And Everett is now down to a Whimsicott that's very low in HP, and a Zamazenta that cannot deal with fire types. I mean, that cannot deal with Lunala, excuse me. Yeah, Everett's in a little bit of a tough situation because neither of these Pokemon in the back, unless it's Zamazenta coming in here going for a Protect, or as a matter of fact, this Rillaboom going for a Fake Out, but that could also just be countered by swapping out the Lunala for the Indeedee, which I think is the move you have to go for. As we see all these multipliers coming in here, I believe there's only 2 turns left to Trick Room. And so with 2 turns left to Trick Room, you gotta go on the gas, you gotta go Weather Ball onto the Zamazenta, and then switch out the Lunala for the Indeedee. Make sure Fake Out's not an option, because if you Fake Out the Torkoal, you get a Body Press off onto this, from the Zamazenta to the Torkoal, meaning it's gonna be pretty susceptible to another attack, but if you don't cover it, then you're gonna get faked out. Torkoal's gonna lose out a turn. Yes, you go for the Meteor Beam here to get the special attack drop, but you're running out of turns at Trick Room. No Fake Out comes out. This Weather Ball is just free enough to go knock out the Rillaboom. And Lunala's going to go for this Meteor Beam now, as we need to update the score. For those of you wondering at home, it is Everett up 1-0 right now. Brandon looking to even to set the game number 3. And Lunala's going to hit the Meteor Beam after the Power Herb activation. Yeah, it's not doing a whole lot of damage. That just allows its Meteor Beam, Moonlight Beams and its Expanding Forces to do a lot more damage. Here comes more HP recovery. And from the looks of it, the Zamazenta is the only thing that can protect now for Everett, so we might be getting a game free. There's only 1 turn left in that Trick Room for Brandon, and if that triggering turn goes away, Zanzenta can just start going for those heavy slams and get more unimpeded damage. And here comes Ndidi once again to bring out the expanding force pressure from this Lunala towards Everett's whole team. We're going to see the Psychic Surge come out. And the Whimsicott tries to go for an encore onto this Lunala, but unfortunately it is now protected by the Psychic Terrain. And here comes Moongeist Beam. And interestingly enough, it goes into the Whimsicott, so down it goes, so no more Mischief Mayhem from that slot. And now it just comes down to, well, can you knock out all of Brandon's Pokemon if you're Everett? Because if you can't, we're going to a game 3. Body Press comes out, it lands on ZD and DD, doesn't even do half damage, and it's taking Rocking Helmet damage. Yeah, we're probably getting a game 3 here from Brandon and Everett. Yeah, battle is canceled. We are going to a game 3, ladies and gentlemen. Between Brandon and Everett, we got game 3. It is. It's 1-1, right? Yeah, it's 1-1. Yeah, we got game number 3 coming up between these two trainers, and as you see, we have plenty of battling in the background. You know, so many people trying to vie for their 2025 start. And if you want to be a part of the action, be sure to come into Cyclo Turtle Place in Pico Rivera, California next week for our VG League Challenge number 2 for the 2025 season on July 20th. If you do, you're competing in a 4, 5, or 6 round tournament, depending on how many people show up, and you'll be competing for championship points aplenty. Brandon already locked in his team. The win condition was definitely the Torkoal, because Torkoal was threatening a whole lot of damage towards all of Brandon's team except for that Regidrago, which Everett's yet to bring in this matchup. And so I think Everett needs to acknowledge that Trick Room is going to be going up for Brandon. And then if Trick Room goes up, you have to be able to find a way to deal with the Torkoal, because it's been clicking Weather Ball every time and it's getting so much damage on every hit that's able to land. I'm just trying to wonder if Regidrago really does have what it takes to win this battle, because if Regidrago could get set up in a spot where you can just threaten damage almost everywhere, you could maybe deal with the problem that is Trick Room, because if you don't allow the Pokemon that deserves to be... forget about that, I'm lost in thought. Anyway, we're going to game number 3 here between Everett and Brandon. Everett going to lead the Overpond Regidrago. There it is. As I was talking about it being an important Pokemon in this matchup. And in the back for Brandon, it's going to be Urshifu and Ndidi. And this is an interesting turn here for Brandon, because you could... I think Wicked Blow is the obvious thing you gotta go for here. And into the Regidrago to make sure Dragon Energy isn't doing a whole lot of damage. But Ogremon can easily redirect that with the Follow Me. And then for Ndidi, it probably has to go for a Terra Fairy to make sure it doesn't get hit by Dragon Energy at all. But then it also leaves your Torkoal wide open for an attack in that spot. And yeah, timer's going low for Brandon. He's got to make a move somehow. It's going to be a Helping Hand, actually, alongside that Terra Fairy. So Terra Fairy plus Helping Hand going to be... Oh, Terra Oscillation coming out from his Ogerpon. It wants damage and it wants it now. It's going to get that Embody Aspect boost for that attack stat. Yeah, and here comes the Fairy Terra from this Ndidi to make sure that the Fairy typing that it gains will be spot on perfect against this Regidrago, which really does not appreciate that damage, especially because this Regidrago is actually holding a Choice Specs. Oh my goodness, that thing is going for damage and it likes it. Here comes Helping Hand into this Urshifu. It's going to allow that Wicked Blow to do so much damage. No, it's going to be a close combat into that Ogerpon. It is not enough for a one-hit knockout, unfortunately. Down goes his defenses. Here comes Ivy Cudgel from this Ogerpon, a +1 attack. It goes into the Indeedee. Everett's popping off into camera. It goes down to a critical hit. It goes down to a critical hit, and now this Regidrago has free reign to go for that Choice Specs boosted Dragon Energy into this Urshifu, and it probably will signal a double knockout, and it is going to be the Dragon Energy. Down goes Urshifu. What a sequence there from Everett. Down goes 2 Pokemon in a single turn, and oh my god, both of Brandon's Pokemon are susceptible to Dragon Energy. I think the writing on the wall is Everett goes for the Ivy Cudgel onto the Lunala and you Dragon Energy. I think the game is over in 2 turns, ladies and gentlemen. It is over in 2 turns. What a call out from Everett to be able to go for that Ivy Cudgel, knowing that the Indeedee was going to go for the Terra Fairy. And because you knew it was going to go for the Terra Fairy, it allowed the Regidrago to at least go for the attack that it needed to go for that Dragon Energy. Here comes Ivy Cudgel into the Lunala to break its Shadow Shield, but it's also going to get a critical hit through the Shadow Shield! What? Ogerpon is just bouncing to play here. Dragon Energy, the game is over in 2 turns. Everett Filloon wins round 6 with a 2-1 victory in 2 turns for game 3. What was that sequence there from Everett? That's really just unheard of. That's big damage for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you leave these Pokemon uncontested, they'll go ahead and bring all the damage in the world to make sure you do not get a turn at all, and that's exactly what happened. Ogerpon survived turn 1, and that allowed it to rail the Indeedee from being able to be immune from that Regidrago, and that's just how a quick game number 3 ends here. That's going to do it for Swiss rounds. What an electric feeling, and we will be back with Top Cut right after this, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere.